Well, here we go. Alrighty. So we are currently working on the spread and the cover project for this electronic illustration series. And with this, I've got the cover. It's coming along all right. Well, I haven't looked at it in a while. I've been really focused on the spread quite a bit. And yeah, character is staying fairly consistent there. I think we've still got some good work that we can do with the lines, but I am definitely finally starting to get warmed up with this style here. So, in the previous video, we went through and talked an awful lot about getting good, solid sketches and concepts. And when you were doing your first drawing, um, not to be satisfied with that first impression of it. The first idea, a lot of times, is you sort of establishing what the thought is going to be, and then it really helps to be able to do a second sketch where you're starting to think more cinematically, or just that extra step that says, "Hey, how can I think about this in sort of a different way so that it becomes a little bit stronger of a scene that we're creating?" And just to bring you up to speed here, the idea is this character Army War veteran, the guy on the floor reaching under in the hole, is rediscovering this blue stone. And the blue stone is going to connect whoever is holding it with anyone else in time while they are holding the blue stone as well. So you kind of get an instant access, your own chat form for anyone else throughout all of history that has held this blue stone. And our main character here is just discovering this stone for the first time, and he is going to run into the most recent owner of the stone first, who's going to kind of lay down the ground rules. And, you know, we were talking about a spread. I think we had said that the spread is sort of a big dramatic event that takes place, and this is really more of a two-page comic, admittedly, that I'm creating here, but I think it's still doing a good job of narrative storytelling because that's what comic books are, right? And I wanted to sort of break down with you guys what's going on here, what's working, what I think is strong, what isn't quite as strong, and then talk to you about my sketching process right now for how I'm going through and doing this. Let's talk about the process first. So the way that I've got this in Photoshop set up over on the right-hand side is I've got my sketches. Let's turn those boxes off. Let's turn my two drawing layers off. And this is what we're left with here. All right, so we've got my sketches, which were from a drawing page, and they were drawn out. And some of these sketches are really, really small. They're not detailed enough, and they need more development. For example, I'm always going to be harping on folks starting off with digital design about making good sketches. Um, I think that this pose for the character is working pretty well here. We've got uh, something strange going on with her arm. I don't know if she's putting her arm across the character. That's kind of what it looks like she's tapping his shoulder. And then definitely some room to be able to improve this hand, which is not developed well at all. The facial expression here, not really all that well developed either. And this is a pretty rough sketch within the shot and within the scene. There we go. We're starting to get some of the facial expression, but this could certainly be a heck of a lot better. There's a lot of improvement that can be had between the two of these. So we're leading up with this big shot, this big reveal of her kind of demonstrating all the other people who have also held the blue stone throughout time, and how it kind of indicated saying that, oh, this fellow's world is about to get a whole heck of a lot bigger. So from there, what I've gone through and done is I have created my boxes, and I use the rectangle tool within Photoshop. Right down here, the rectangle tool down at the very bottom. Doesn't get used all that often, I don't think, for most of what we do. But set within the property section, you can set the width of the stroke on that box, and that'll remain consistent. So from there, I'm pretty much just duplicating out. And some of the same rules that we found with the CD layout becomes the same here. So for the most part, I'm trying to keep my width between the boxes somewhat even, right? So there's a hang line here is the name, where the top of the boxes are all in line with one another. That's a good little thing to be able to keep stuff looking nice and clean. And that's the other thing that's going on here is that I've got evenly spaced boxes for the most part throughout the shot. I'm just making sure this is a little bit rough. It's not quite as professional as I'd like for it to be, but we've got uh, pretty much an equal border around all the shots as well. So around the distance between the edge of the box and the side of the canvas is equal throughout. That goes with the page split as well for the fold within the paper. And that's helping all this stuff kind of come together and look a little bit more clean. Not all of them need to line up perfectly. That's not always necessary. That can look a little bit too formal. One artist who was all about breaking outside of the box is Todd McFarlane when he started doing Spawn way back in the day. And just about any comic that you see, great. It doesn't take you too long to be able to find a Todd McFarlane comic layout that is absolutely playing with the medium and playing with the format of how these characters are laid out. So there's Spawn sort of in a pool of his own slime, bleeding, and then I guess we're seeing sort of what happened in the past in that shot, and they're just really, really non-traditional page layouts and spreads where the characters are jumping outside of the frames, left, right, and sideways. They're really, really kinetic and really interesting, and this influenced me a lot when I was younger, but yeah, you can see just left and right the page spreads get really, really dynamic and start to break the regular tradition of what a comic spread and layout should be. But for this example, I'm keeping it much more traditional and much tighter here. But yeah, if you like this kind of thing, if you like sequential art, digital illustration, telling a story with pictures, there's a lot of good studying that can happen with Todd McFarlane comics. So the way that I've got these panels set up right now, we've been going for 16, almost 16 weeks at this point, and I'm a little bit tired when it comes to drawing. So I am trying to use all kinds of shortcuts here, especially because I've got a lot of drawing that's happening on these two pages to be able to get through this as rapidly as possible. So the first thing that I'm doing, I'm working on just two layers here for this scene. The first one is going through and getting the main character within each one of the shots on their own layer. And after that, then I'm going back and very rapidly adding a background within there. Now, these backgrounds that I'm putting in are helping with context. They're helping with setting the stage for the space and for the environment. However, these are not the cleanest backgrounds I've ever done in my entire life. I would not call these sort of professional level if I was working for a a client who wanted us two sequential art pages, then I would certainly slow down and clean these backgrounds up. However, I am also anticipating, kind of juggling the tool set that I have in my head while I can work on these. I'm anticipating being able to block out a lot of this stuff. So I want a lot of this page to end up being fairly dark and to keep the lighting dim. So almost sepia tones where it's a lot of like dark browns and tans and things like that. And then the blue is going to be the part that really stands out within this. So she's in the nightclub, but you can imagine that, there's lighting up on the stage, but the rest of the characters for the most part are pretty much in shadow throughout these scenes. So it has a real kind of film noir type vibe to it. And then the same thing is going on with this fella. For him to be able to see the glow of the stone, he's going to be with a bottle of something that he's drinking there in the middle of the night, and he's really gotten into it. And I think that's in my head how I imagine the whole forming. He trips or something like that occurs. And so the kitchen's going to be fairly dark as well, with maybe some moonlight that's starting to come in there a little bit, but we can keep most of these pages um, in the brown, red area with the blue actually being the part that sort of jumps and stands out here. So that's not an excuse, hiding things under the rug and hiding them within the shadows, but a lot of this is going to be pretty shadowed out. Which brings me to this one frame here over on the left-hand side. When I had done my original sketch of the page was much skinnier than what the actual layout ended up being. And this drawing does not squeeze all the way across. There was really no reason for me to make this drawing go all the way across. And I ended up with this little filler frame right here. Okay. You could make the argument that within the first three drawings, let me turn off the sketches so that we can see them. Within the first three drawings within this page, we've got a lot of busyness and we've got a lot of action that's going on for the viewer's eyes with this busy nightclub scene. And all of a sudden, we're introducing them to a new location. I think that you could make the justification that this is helping to create stark contrast between the busy 1920s like speakeasy that the gal's supposed to be in versus where the guy's at within his kitchen. Um, but this particular shot here is pretty boring and pretty uninteresting. The back of a fella's head with a small little gap in the wall, plenty of room for wallpaper in a picture. It's not that kinetic or that dramatic of a drawing. I think that three or four sketches later, I probably could have come up with a much better solution to show how this character is actually appreciating the ground. Maybe we could do another shot of, the base ground and it's just his feet instead of having to show the back of his head. It might be a little bit more interesting. But anyways, here we are. So we get him, and then we can make the connection that he's bending down and picking up whatever is down in here. So he's seeing it with his line of sight. Um, from here, I'm finally starting to get into my flow and get warmed up on these characters. So this is where I'm at currently. We can see that we're starting to get some pretty good facial structures that are going on. This character's design is starting to get locked in, and we're starting to, I think, get a pretty good idea of what it is that he is going to look like. So, starting to get back into the classic kind of comic book proportions and styles on the characters. Let's turn off that original layer. And this is what I had in there previously for his face and him holding up the stone. That is almost completely unrecognizable. And that is not a strong drawing by any means. Yeah, there we are, back to the back of his head again. Pretty silly. But anywho, so he's going to be the idea is that the girl is starting to appear and now she's becoming much, much more formal here. Her form is taking a lot more shape. And then all of a sudden, we're going to see her actually tap his shoulder. And that's when he freaks out within the next scene and gets all surprised. And we're do a switcheroo. So he's getting the reaction shot looking back over his shoulder from what we saw before. I think it does a nice job of pulling the viewer's attention from the bottom right-hand side up to the top left on the next page. So we're getting sort of an action and then a reaction shot to draw us over there. And that's something that when I was looking at the other folks' examples of these projects, it felt like you had a lot of people had one big central idea for the splash page. If you're going to do one big central idea, just make sure that whatever you're putting within the background and within the environment are helping to tell that story as well. Really use every single tool that you have. And if you are going to be adding any other frames to a big two-page splash page, make sure that you're using those other small frames effectively to enhance the story and that they don't just feel like they're there because you kind of feel like you should be doing um, some ornament around the page. Don't just have it as filler, right? So this guy over here on the left-hand side, total filler, probably doesn't need to exist, but here he is, and I think that he's doing a good job of helping to tell the story. The reason why I'm keeping this shot this way. I want to make sure that I also show off the pack of cigarettes and the lighter that are in the first three different shots up here, so that there's a little bit of a connection between, she's got unfortunately, her cigarette in her hand, different time, different era, and then what would she bury in a wall? Her pack of cigarettes, her lighter, and her blue stone. So, when it comes to drawing out these characters, I am working really, really fast, like I said right now. And I want to go in and there's a couple things that I'm doing. So I'm working with a very thin line at first, and then I'm going back through and I'm doing one quick outline on the characters, the main character within each one of the shots to help them stand out and have a little bit of oomph. You can see that that's going on with her right here. She's got a thicker outline around her than the rest of the background characters that are all a pretty thin, even line. Like I said, the longer you stare at the background characters, the less compelling or strong the drawings really are. But I'm hoping to tuck away a lot of them within the shadows. So yeah, the outline helps to focus our attention, and because these are not by any means the strongest drawings in the entire world, um, it's helping to add a little bit more emphasis. And there's probably going to be a lot of unique shading that goes on within these product projects or within these different panels to help tell the story through tone in an interesting and fascinating way. But I feel like like I said, I'm finally starting to warm up on these characters, and it took me a while to be able to do that. So let me I'm going to leave that one alone for now. Let's go into this shot and we'll do a rundown on the character real quick. Now, one of the things that between the cover and the spread is that hopefully you guys will get used to doing the same type of character, the same character more than one time. There we go. We got our thin line on there, kind of a brown. And so your hand should start to get trained up on what this character painting or character style looks like. So right here, one of the first videos I posted for this was the Greek proportions of drawing. And this, by all means, is not a really clear sketch of the character. However, I do have enough important information. I have a dot for his nose, right? I've got a general idea of where his mouth is going to go. I've got some indication of his left brow line. And from the left brow line, I know that the ear is going to go right around here. And then I've got the slope back on the head. That's going to help me remember to draw underneath the nose. So let's start with the nose on this character. We've got the bridge right underneath it. Nostril, front of the nose. There we go. Let's bring it on back. So we got the eyebrow showing shock and awe. Good way to show shock and awe here is by drawing the whites of the eyes. We've already kind of messed up this character. Let's let's give it a second try. I want to get in a little bit closer. I feel like I'm drawing too far back right now. All right. So we want to get under the nose. Both of those are going to go in and down to the nape, nostril, edge of the nostril, eyebrow. That is always a good anchor point. Eyebrow. There we go. So now we're starting to get it. And then we've got the eye, which is going to show up. So showing the whites of the eyes is always a great way to be able to show fear. With this character previously, I gave him some lines on his face that are going to come in handy now. Got a little bit of a mustache on here. Mustaches always help it draw the mouth on the character just a little bit easier. Let's show the whites of his teeth. He's really freaked out, and we're showing sort of inside the mouth, so we're going to see some back of the teeth. Now from there, let's open that jaw up just a little bit further. and straight it out. Get the bottom of the teeth. So he's really yelling. He is freaked. Again, whites of the eyes to be able to show fear. We got some wrinkles under there, which are serving us well. That brings us into the jawline, edge of the mustache, long line since he's opening his mouth. Get the bottom lip on there, curving that around, and now we are down to the Tony Stark mustache. There we go. So we got his goatee, and we're going to stretch all this out quite a bit. There we go. So we're getting a pretty good scared look on the character's face relatively quickly. So we got that jaw coming down quite a bit. Let's open it up. And one of the, trying to make this sort of the 1970s, can't really tell within this shot, but to do that, we're going to give him some sideburns. We want that head kind of kicked back and showing just how disheveled and kind of crazy his hair is. Don't really want to see too much of the top of his head since he's leaning his head back. Get those ears, earlobe a little bit bigger because it's closer up to us. And then again, just giving him some extra scraggle. So since the head is going all the way up, one of the big things that I want to do with this guy was give him some wrinkles, right? He is a stressed out fella. All right, there we go. So he's got his wrinkles around his forehead. Let's see if we can improve that nostril just a little bit. Come on, buddy. There you go. There you go. It's looking pretty good. All right, so this is a pretty, now I want to go back and just like a sketch, sort of finalizing my lines here with that deep outline that I've been using to sort of cheat and clean up some stuff with my rough drawing. Don't overly use this trick, folks. It won't always save you. But again, for the sake of super fast drawing here at the end after a lot of hard work, this is going to help me out quite a bit. So just giving it a few more little textured lines here and there. And now we got a pretty good drawing on this character. So let's go back. Yeah, that looks great for him being scared. Good expression. Got the whites of the eyes. Mouth is fully open. It's all working for me. However, the rest of the drawing on this guy being scared is not all that great. So let's figure out where the edge of his collar is going to be on his shirt. Let's throw the arm really high up. All feeling good. And he was holding the stone. Let's just go ahead and give him some back here. All right. So when I'm doing the fingers, this is super fast hand drawing as well. And you can see that in my bottom sketch, I really don't have much of a hand here to go on. So I'm having to kind of wing this. There's a couple key moments within the character's hands that I'm looking for. So the first one is I am just going to, so that's my pinky. Usually the pinky is going to get pushed really far away from the rest of the fingers. And then I'm sort of thinking of this as like three little sausages. I don't know how else to describe it within my head. I'm trying to get the three sausage links for the character's fingers. And one, two, and three, those three guys will get me through most fingers. Okay, so now let's open this up. We got a little bit of roundness down at the base of the finger. And there's my one sausage and then my second sausage. Okay. So each time that I can do one, two, and three, I'm in a pretty good spot to be able to ad lib and freestyle hands when I'm trying to work really, really fast. Those are the three moments that I'm looking for, and that will help me. Index finger and the secondary finger are usually going to be pretty close together. All right, so that'll work. And now we're going over to her shoulder so we can stop with this madness. All right, now we got his wrist. Wrist is going to be sort of a square, boxy shape. He's got his sleeves rolled up. He's like looks like basically a lumberjack. And here we go. So we're about to move into the beauty of Photoshop here. Let's go back and let's check this. So right now, the head is nice and big. I really like the scale of the character's head, and I like the way that this hand is looking. However, it is too small. So let's get the hand up, bring it down, and I think that'll work for the most part. So it's getting close to her. And we've got enough room now within this shot. You can see that there's supposed to be two speech bubbles. I think we can raise her head up just a little bit more within the shot and bring her up a little bit higher. We'll see how it goes. But we at least have got this shoulder and arm combo working well now for the foreshortening. There we go. Foreshortened to death on that arm. I think we're going to get away with it. Not standing out to me too bad. And we've got the girl to draw within the foreground now. So this gets a little bit trickier. Do we do her on the background layer or the foreground layer? We've been working really good with just these two layers throughout the entire other page. However, this is the first time that we've really got two characters within the same shot. So let's do her on a new layer, and we are going to keep that nice dark brown line that we've been using. So we said, oops, that we wanted to move her up a little bit higher. This feels like a good time to hit Control S since my computer's been weird. All right, save. Cool. So what do we have? Establishing features for this character. She's got her barrette. Okay. And then we got kind of the wavy hair that's going back and up. The other waves and the curls on her hair as well. One more sort of curl. It's all wrapping around and going crazy here. Again, I'm trying to draw as quickly as possible. This is where the okay, and then her outfit is pretty well established also. In comparison to that guy's face, I think that her entire head would still be quite a bit larger. And now we can go in transform, warp. Just to make my life a little bit easier, let's separate those two out. And then we've got her shoulders coming up nice and high here. Want her to look confident. I'm working on my laptop now and not the big Wacom screen that I had before. That big Wacom screen was like a Ferrari. Now it feels like I'm in a Pinto. Alrighty, and for the hands, we want palms up, wrapping around her. It's a whole lot of back within this shot. Mm, there we go. So that feels pretty strong. Now we've got that fellow to try and figure out what to do with our distressed guy here. So we're losing that really good hand shape that we were able to create. And through the power of digital design, edit, transform, and rotate. Cool. Okay. I don't know why my Photoshop isn't quite. See if we, there we go. Back up and delete around her shoulder here. And now she's quite a bit more solid too, which I think is doing a good job of telling the story that we're looking to tell. And what have we been doing? So I like the way all that's feeling and looking. Let's merge the two together. And now I'm going to go back over with that thicker line one more time. I could have left her on a separate layer in case I wanted to do anything with the line work itself. To say make it glowing or something like that, since she's still sort of being formed. But I don't know. I think I like it at this point that she's had 3 frames to actually come to us, an entire page of build up. I think by this point she's here. She's arrived. Cool. So just that little bit of a darker line, I think is helping this quite a bit. So we've talked a lot about line weight previously, and this would be one of those areas where we could do some really good line weight. Mine happens to be pretty sloppy right now. So the line weight is talking back to like a Walt Disney, shoot, Looney Tunes, all kinds of classic animations use it, where it's got thicker and thinner lines, and the thick lines taper down into the thin lines. And that's sort of what's going on with her hair right there. This hair is feeling very Aeon Flux to me. And yeah, we got some okay starter indications of the wrinkles in the clothing on her back. There's probably a little bit more that we could do there. And now for the rest of this guy's body, let's figure him out. So we've got his shirt, which is appearing. Let's give a couple more wrinkles. I can see that my Photoshop is about to give me a whole heap of trouble right now. We're getting a little bit of lag that's going on and some fractaling that's happening with the lines that I'm making. There we go. I think that's working pretty well for him. Other indicators of where this is taking place within the scene. We established previously this picture on the wall. Let's grab that. Oh, grab that same photo that we had in there a second ago. Wherever it went. And I just want to drop this within the scene as kind of a callback. There's likely going to be two text boxes over the top of it that are hiding it. But that picture is helping to give us just a little bit of placement. And I also want to do wallpaper on the wall that has the hole in it. You know, when you plan out a fake quick still life within 2 seconds, you never really think about, oh gosh, what is going on with the rest of the objects inside of that shot. Uh, there we go. That'll work for me. Again, plenty of things to clean up here. If I was doing this for an actual client, I would never leave my lines between things this messy or this wrinkly on this frame in general. I would clean all this up, but I'm trying to give a quick end of the semester example here. All right, so one more thing. Let's just go ahead and do our due diligence and just erase out behind there just to make things a little bit faster for rendering and color blocking later on. I want to try to be able to get through this with all the line work within one layer. I think I can. The blue glowy stone effects, that can be something that I paint over at the top at the very end. We'll see how much that slows me down. But now we have a nice, consistent character design and look between these first couple frames, what's appearing over here, and this shot as well. We've got a great character reaction that's going on, some good room to be able to have some text boxes or thought boxes right above the character as well. And now we're in a pretty good spot. Keeping with the background on one layer to keep on moving through and continue to do some great character work between the two of these. Been able to draw this gal 3 times now, so I'm making some pretty big decisions about what her face is going to look like. I think between these 3 drawings, they still change a little bit more than I would like for them to, but I think we've got enough here now to be able to draw her pretty well. So let's just, for reference sake, grab this one. All right, so that's all working pretty well for me. I think it is worth redrawing the expression on her to make her look just a little bit more smug. Um, the idea here is that she is completely enjoying surprising the heck out of this guy. So we have a matching jawline here. I think we could push the hair forward just a little bit more since it's hanging. There we go. That's looking better. And now what to do for her facial expression. Maybe just a tighter mouth. All right. Let's clean up the cheek if that's the direction that we're going. All right. So I think you can see how even though it's using that previous drawing, that is not looking good now that we're backing out. So let's keep fixing it. The first one was a good starter. There we go. We got the cheeks, a little bit of a line, lips pursed, lips going back, center of the lips right here. I think I kind of want her to look a little bit mischievous, a little bit mean, like maybe she's just enjoying all of this just a little bit too much for her own amusement. I don't know if you guys have ever seen any of the Jonathan Hickman X-Men, or shoot, when he did the Fantastic Four. I guess he's been doing the same character for a while when he did that evil Reed Richards. Okay, just double checking to make sure bridge of the nose is a little bit different in that one in the top left-hand side, but I think we're back to normal here. Give her just that little bit of a dimple on the bottom of her chin. There we go. That's working well. Anywho, when he did Professor X in the X-Men, and he did Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four, he put this mask over the top of each one of them. Professor X is wearing Cerebro all the time, and then Reed Richards has got, I don't know what kind of crazy mask it is that he's wearing. Anywho, it makes both the characters just their mouths show and their eyes are kind of hidden all the time. And they go from these heroes that we're comfortable with and, we've trusted for all these years to suddenly people that you just don't quite trust in the same way anymore. I know, and it's a particular feeling that he's creating with these drawings that I'd like to be able to emulate here. All right, there we go. And now she got her fur coat on, or fur collar. Yeah, I like it. I think it's working. Beans. See, I keep on getting these, even with my smoothing turned up to 25%, I'm still getting some really much more wobbly lines than I would prefer. All right. Oh, I see what she's doing here. So she's kind of pinching his chin. What to do here? So it's definitely going to be her left hand that's coming forward. That means the thumb is going to be up. Knuckles out towards the audience. Wrist. And I like it. The fuzziness of her jacket is starting to take on kind of a uh, bathrobe type look. There we go. Double line around. Got the other hand to figure out. So one of the things I keep on playing with here in my head with this female character is the cigarette that she keeps on holding. And I'd really like to wrap sort of a blue smoke around her within the vast majority of these scenes or shots that she's in. There we go. So when we zoom in here, we've still got a very, very rough hand that's going on. The fingers for a strong female hand as well. Usually they're going to be quite a bit more thin. These are very, very thick female fingers here. So if I was slowing down and going to correct this, I would redraw those fingers to where they feel much, much thinner. There we go. So we got a pretty good hand going on here. Thumbs out for each one of them. I think she's telling her story to this guy in a way that he is absolutely flabbergasted and going to be listening to with how close up she's getting with him. And I think successfully, that this has done a nice job of bringing us from the speakeasy that she was in the beginning into bringing these two characters together in 2 pages across time. Feels pretty good. Like I said, now I'm starting to get really warmed up with my character drawing and my expressions. Starting to get back into it. That first one was rough, trying to switch my brain into this mode. But here we go. All right, so now we got her, and she's on her own little layer, hanging out up top. Now we can draw him in and just completely surprised. Guy's got kind of Chris Pratt hair going on. Don't forget about those bun chops, sideburns. There's all different types of ear shapes. That's just sort of the one that his eyes are locked. He is trying his best to listen and just still completely confused and dumbfounded. So what's going on here? Back of the head. There we go. I liked his neck getting a little bit thicker. We can give him some more weight. Don't draw him too skinny. It looks a little bit strange with her with her hand right there on his mouth like that. Oops. So let's move it up. Looks like she's wiping something off of his he has a milk mustache or something. There we go. That's more of what I had in mind. Or like his jaws dropped. But we're missing the fun little goatee. Okay, that works well for me. I like the flat top on his head. And I think that that does a good job of creating some stark contrast between these two characters. Still want to quickly try and clean this guy up with that thicker outline. Okay, that feels good and surprised. He feels sort of a little bit caveman-like. See what we can do with sort of pushing and pulling this area. Edit, transform, warp. There we go. He still doesn't look all that with it and together, but I think that gives him a little bit more grace in the way I was drawing him. Edit. Oops. I want to get stuck with this style of nose. Edit, transform, warp. There it is. There we go. Much better. Okay, so that's staying more accurate to the way that I've got the character drawn other places. And that is, let's just check it real quick. I think a really good example to maybe stop this video on when it comes to initial sketches versus making those changes and those updates as we move into the final drawing. So here we do have some good visual indications of the character's face, but when we get to the final drawing, there's still quite a bit of changes that are going to end up happening to be able to what's going to serve and tell each one of these frames the best way that you possibly can. The size of the head changed, expression between the two characters was influenced and switched around quite a bit, but it's a compelling frame between the two of them as they're making eye contact for the first time. And I think that it does its job effectively for what it is that it needed to do. And yeah, from there, we got one more of them sort of relating, but now they're both sort of standing up with one another. And that's where we get the big reveal at the very end. And yeah, man, up next, color blocking for this page. I hopefully will have the rest of this line stuff done here fairly soon. I don't want to get too rushed with it. That's certainly something that can happen where, let me turn off the sketches and just do a peel through while I'm covering this. You can spend, you can get worn out with this stuff and start rushing it and moving a little bit too fast. Highly recommend, if you've been drawing for about an hour or so, an hour and a half, get up, take a little 2-minute break, refresh your eyes, refresh your hand. Especially if you're been in a good flow state and you feel yourself starting to break out of it and get a little bit more into a rush than you think you should be. Um, for example, here's a great one of me not really being entirely warmed up on this character yet today, with the way that I was drawing him and still trying to figure out what the face is going to look like overall. So, fourth wall break at the audience of just how confused and perplexed I was. Then all of a sudden, we get a classic drawing that I probably did when I was like 16. My hand still remembers how to draw that particular facial expression. You can feel all the high school angst in there. I think that's a pretty good back and forth between the two characters. And if you're doing this right, each one of these frames and each one of these things, I'm allowing myself room to warm up and get to know these characters over these different panels and these different shots to be able to tell this story in a really effective, strong way, which I am ending on my big splash reveal here down at the bottom of um, all the other characters that this guy is about to get introduced to in the world. And I think it's fun that it ends with his back reaction and then her just sort of being like, "Oh, you haven't seen nothing yet." So yeah, that's where this thing is headed. We've got, what is that? A little bit over half of the line art completed for these characters or for this page. And I think that's starting to come together nicely once we see the balance between the complex scene that I'm starting off with in the beginning versus the two character interactions, setting the place and the scene with the picture on the wall, and then coming back to that over here, which helps to give us a good sense that, yeah, he's still in the same spot that he was before. And yeah, it should start to read pretty well together. You can see that I'm losing a lot of the background elements here as they're starting to come together. That can probably just be a colored background, but you still need to have some indication to tell the story of where these characters are at. Use the environment, use the character poses, use the expression, use the hands, use the clothing, use the items that they're holding, everything that you can, you guys, to be able to tell the story as effectively as you can. The composition, the spacing between the two characters, the pose that the character's in, all that stuff, it matters. So with that one, we're going to drop this recording. I'll see you for the next one.